Good day, fellow Bintegers. This is the Binteger podcast. My name is Biniam. I'm your host for this episode. This is episode 9. I had to check yesterday and say which episode are we on, but we're on episode 9 of the Bintegers podcast. I'm so thrilled you could spend a few moments in your day with me. Today we are covering the last of my prerequisites for integrity. On this podcast, we talk all things related to integrity. One of those factors I think is absolutely critical for all of us to imbibe in our personal lives, and yet I question if many of us actually commit ourselves to integrity in an intentional, applied way. And so the reason for this podcast, to facilitate and encourage conversations around integrity, to think through integrity together with me, and not only to think through it theoretically, but also to practice it in our personal lives. That is why I am here and why I'm thrilled to be here. This is such an important project for me personally. I'm benefiting so much from this exercise of trying to articulate and explain and put into a framework that's understandable this idea of integrity. It's one of those things where I was pursuing living with it, but I did not know how to talk about it. And so actually doing the work in trying to figure out what is involved when you're talking about integrity. It's been so enriching. And so I hope you are encouraged and inspired to also think through with me and practice together what integrity looks like when we apply ourselves committedly to it. But of course, we start off this episode doing a feelings check-in, an exercise that I find tremendously life-giving because it helps us to get to know ourselves. Today, our final topic on integrity is by way of prerequisites. I've spent a whole week devoting to this. The seventh one that I want to share with you from my perspective is that of self-awareness. And self-awareness, that's what we do even when we do a feelings check-in. We're trying to be aware of what is going on internally for us emotionally in this moment. I'm not talking about where you were before, but like in this moment, where are you? What are some of the factors that have happened before to bring you to this moment, and where do you sit in this moment? And so I've been using the feelings wheel, which you can search online, which is a fantastic resource. I also have what is called the Love Smart cards. The Love Smart cards, it's this pack of cards. Let me see if I can share with you. It kind of looks like this here, and it comes in this beautiful little box. It's got 4 little sections. One is on characters. You've got a whole section for characters. You've got a whole sections for longings, things that you really want to experience. And then you've got a couple of sets of cards for emotions. Ones are unpleasant emotions. The other set is pleasant emotions. And the unpleasant emotions are emotions that arise when your needs, your desires, your values aren't being fulfilled to the degree that you're longing for. Whereas pleasant emotions are those needs and values and longings that are fulfilled, and you're doing really well that way. So I've got a couple here. I just went through the set of emotions, and I picked out the cards that I felt in this present moment where I was at, and then I narrowed them down to a couple. And so I'm going to share those with you. So in this moment, I am feeling, let me start off with the unpleasant emotions that I was resonating with. The unpleasant emotions that I came up with, the first one was despairing a little bit. I felt a little bit of despair because here I am at the outset of this project, this podcast, and I have an ambitious goal. I think it's a realistic goal where I'm devoting about 15 minutes a day to this podcast. I don't pre-record in advance. I want to do it on the day of. And so the big part of that choice to make this happen every day is because I also want to model for you how I do a feelings check-in in this moment. As I'm sitting here recording, here's where I'm presently at. And so that entails that I'm going to do this every day with you guys for the next 360 some days. And so there's a bit of despair as I was looking at the few podcasts that I've already recorded so far and thinking, I'm so far from that finish line a year from now. And despairing by way of saying, I wonder if I have what it takes. Can I really do this? And there's just a bit of doubt going on there. And in relation to that despair, there's also a bit of anxiety, or I was feeling a bit anxious in the sense that I was like, Can I really do this? I'm not sure. I'm feeling anxious about that. So that's where I'm feeling on the unpleasant side emotionally in this moment. But I'll tell you the pleasant emotions that I am experiencing. The two that I chose. One was I felt tremendously touched. I'm feeling tremendously touched in this moment emotionally. And this is still an after effect of my time last night. If you were listening yesterday, you'll know that I've been looking forward for all week to this dance opportunity I had at one of the clubs here in our city last night. And so I went out and I had such a blast. I danced. I love dancing. I danced on the dance floor the whole time. Like it started maybe around 10 o'clock and I was just going straight till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Such a vibe. Oh my goodness. It was so good. And by the end I was getting pretty exhausted and tired, but I just gave it up my all. But why I'm feeling touched is in the midst of my dancing, like my friends have told me the way I dance is very unique, and it brings them tremendous joy when they watch me dance. I've never taken dancing lessons personally, but as I was on the dance floor, just giving it and feeling the music and just immersing myself in the moment, on a couple of different occasions, I had other strangers on the dance floor who I was sharing space with coming to me and saying how much joy that I brought them when they watched me dance and how I made their night because I was on the dance floor and I was just being me and doing it. You know, that there's a phrase that has been popularized that says dance like no one's watching, and it's a beautiful sentiment, but so many, I find in my observations, struggle with that because so many of us are still hindered by concern of what other people are thinking of us. And so dance like no one's watching sounds amazing, but it's hard to execute, isn't it? And yet I've just gotten to a point in my personal life where I couldn't care less what people think, and I just go for it. I go for it. And it helps that I do have some musical background. I play the trumpet, and so I can pick up a beat, and now I can also move my body to a beat, which is amazing. And so it was such a fun time. So I'm feeling tremendously touched still by those individuals who came to me last night and expressed how much they appreciate what I was able to give them by way of feeling a sense of happiness and joy and making their night. And then the second word I was thinking of is hopeful. Hopeful because as I embark on this project and I commit myself on a daily basis to it, I have tremendous hopefulness for how it's going to transform the lives of others who are in the same wavelength of saying, I want to see integrity applied in my life. I want to see what it feels like to have my life totally transformed, where I begin to live on purpose because I am self-aware, like we're talking about today. I have my values aligned with my actions. Oh my goodness, like this is so brilliant. So it's wonderful. Now, what I've also been doing is just going through a few of these cards and reading like maybe about 5 of them, because in so doing, my hope is that it's going to encourage you to expand your vocabulary so that you can have more words to choose from and be more specific in what you're feeling in the moment. So let me just go through a few of these cards on either category, both of the unpleasant emotions and the pleasant emotions, both then, because I think the whole range of emotions that we experience should be legitimized. The real question is, are we expressing them appropriately? For example, anger is a fantastic emotion to express when it's expressed appropriately. There are unhelpful ways of expressing anger, and we don't want to sort of say just anything goes. There's ways that we express our emotions sometimes that are unhelpful, and they affect others and ourselves adversely. But whereas there's ways of legitimizing all those emotions if we learn how to express them appropriately. So there's a way to feel anger, there's a way to feel war, there's a way to feel all those unpleasant feelings in a way that is good, right? And I better hurry because my time is running out here. So here's the unpleasant emotions: vulnerable, insecure, restless, discouraged, and apprehensive. Again, vulnerable, insecure, restless, discouraged, and apprehensive. Those are the unpleasant emotions I'm going to share with you today. The positive ones I'd love to share with you by way of expanding your repertoire is clear-headed, calm, inspired, blessed, and centered. Once again, clear-headed, calm, inspired, blessed, and centered. I hope those serve you well. But without further ado, let's dive into today's topic. Today we are talking about self-awareness. How to define it. There's a few definitions I found helpful. See which one you resonate with, my dear Binteger. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand one's thoughts, behaviors, and feelings. The ability to recognize and understand your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. It's like being conscious of yourself as a separate individual and learning how to assess your emotions and your motivations. Why do you do what you do, for example? It's like understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, allowing you to be able to reflect on your actions and to make informed choices in your life. That's kind of at the nucleus of what self-awareness is. But let's dive a little bit more. Self-awareness enables one to understand their personal values. My definition of integrity goes as such. It's the alignment of your internal values, your internal beliefs, your internal principles with your external actions. For many of us, there's a disjunct there, right? And so understanding your personal values, having a deep understanding of what those beliefs, those principles are, will allow you to be able to better align your actions with what you actually believe because you're doing it on purpose. That's what integrity is at the very core, I believe, is that alignment of those two. But you can't align your actions if you have no idea what you believe, if you have no idea what principles you abide by, if you have no idea what you deeply value. If you don't have a true north, it's hard to be able to set for that direction, right? You need a way to have your actions guided by your true north of your values. You're able further to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses because you're able to make those decisions and choices in line with your awareness of what your capacities are, your limitations, right? For example, last night when I was dancing, I know I couldn't have stayed dancing indefinitely. I know my limitations, and I was nearing the very end of it. I expended all my energy. I'd expended all my strength as I gave it for a few hours on the dance floor, but I was flagging towards the end, right? In the same way, what does that look like for you in knowing your values, knowing yourself well enough to be able to say, I don't have a lot of patience, so I'm not going to put myself in a setting that demands a lot of patience. That's self-awareness. Do you see that? Or, man, this kind of scenario always gets me tremendously angry to the point of rage, so I'm not going to put myself in this scenario. That takes self-awareness and understanding your limitations and your capabilities so you can choose where you're going to be or not be based on those values that helps you say, I don't want to be there, right? So knowing your weaknesses helps to ensure that your actions are aligned with your abilities. Self-awareness further is being able to identify your biases and your blind spots. And with this one here, when you're aware of your biases and your blind spots, you're better able to minimize and the impact that those expressions have on your actions and your decisions. So if, for example, you struggle with being say interrupting people when they're talking and you don't want to because you have something to say and you just kind of interject yourself, right? Because you feel you have strong inclinations. You're going to look for ways of helping that awareness to minimize your actions because you actually value saying, I don't want to express these biases that I have without actually understanding what someone else is saying, right? Self-awareness further helps us to maintain consistency in our behaviors and our actions. You see, when you understand what your values are, when you understand what your beliefs are, you start thinking and watching and keeping track of how well are my actions aligning with my values in the ways that I really appreciate and I really want to see happening, right? Furthermore, self-awareness also helps one to keep accountable with their actions and their decisions. You're more willing to say, hey, I want to have others keeping me accountable or myself to make sure that in any situation, my actions are aligning with my values that I speak about. That's why I talk about my values often, because then I'm held accountable, not only by myself, but by those around me as well. My dear fellow Bintegers, this has been a wonderful series on the prerequisites of integrity. I've enjoyed it. I would love to hear your thoughts on your list. Thank you for joining today's show. Bye for now.